This happened last winter. I was home alone while everyone was off enjoying the holidays. I thought it would be nice to have the place to myself. I was busy with my graphic design projects. I told myself I didn't mind the solitude. I was wrong. The first unsettling thing happened on a cold evening. I was really focused on my work when I heard a loud thud from the hallway outside my apartment. I froze. A chill ran down my spine. I thought it was probably just wind or maybe a neighbor dropping something. I tried to shake it off and went back to my work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something felt very wrong. A few days later, I woke up to find my front door slightly ajar. I always locked it before bed. Panic shot through me. I rushed over to check, but the lock was secure. I told myself I must have forgotten to close it properly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was messing with me. Things got weirder. I started to see shadows outside my window. I'd catch a glimpse of dark shapes moving quickly, then they vanished when I turned my head. I thought it was just branches or something, but it felt like someone was watching me. I pulled the curtains closed, thinking it would help, but it didn't. Then it escalated. I started getting strange, anonymous texts. The first one said, "I see you." My heart raced. I thought maybe it was a prank, but then the messages kept coming, and they weren't vague. They mentioned things only someone close would know. I felt trapped in a nightmare. I considered calling the police, but hesitated. What if it was just my imagination? I kept telling myself it could be a coincidence or a sick joke. My safety felt like it was slipping away. I could hardly concentrate on work anymore. That night, everything reached a breaking point. I sat in my dark apartment. My laptop was the only light. I heard soft footsteps in the hallway, and then they stopped. My heart thudded hard in my chest. "Who's there?" I called out. No answer. Just then, I caught a dark shape out of the corner of my eye. I whipped my head around, but there was nothing there. Just shadows. My neck tingled. I felt cold and exposed. I didn't know whether to run or stay put. What if it was all in my head? What if I was losing my mind? Or worse, what if someone was lurking just outside my door? I stood there, frozen in fear, waiting for something to happen. Then I heard a loud bang from my front door. It jolted me back into reality. I felt sheer panic. It was like time stopped as I stared at the door. My breath quickened as I wondered what was on the other side. Just as I thought I might scream, I heard a soft voice whisper, "Let me in." I nearly jumped out of my skin. I never felt so scared. I stood there, heart racing. The voice echoed in my ears, "Let me in." I felt like I was stuck in a horror movie, paralyzed by fear. Every part of me screamed to run, but my feet wouldn't move. I wanted to call out, to bang on the walls, to make noise. Anything to drown out that whisper, but I didn't. I finally managed to take a shaky breath and edged closer to the door. My mind swirled with questions. Who was it? A neighbor? A friend pulling a prank? I glanced at the peephole. It felt like a bad idea. What if I saw something that would make this worse? Yet curiosity battled my fear. I leaned in, trying to peer through. The hallway was empty. I frowned. Still, that whisper echoed. "Let me in." It seemed to resonate deeper within me, rippling through my skin. I grabbed my phone and texted my friend, hoping for some reassurance. "Can you come over? I feel weird." I hit send, but money still couldn't buy me time. I didn't know how long I'd be alone. Then the banging came again, louder this time. My stomach dropped. It sounded desperate. I backed away, panic clawing at my throat. I felt like a rabbit caught in the headlights of an oncoming car. "Please," the voice said, softer now, but still unnerving. "I need help." I paused. Should I respond? What help could I give to a stranger lurking outside my door at this hour? Suddenly, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. My laptop screen flickered as if there was interference. I turned back and saw something move beneath my door. It wasn't a shadow. It looked like fingers, thin and pale. My breath hitched in my throat, and I staggered backward. I decided then and there that I had to escape. I grabbed my bag and slung it over my shoulder, eyeing the door. But as I reached for the handle, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. My heart nearly stopped. I cursed under my breath and felt my way to the light switch, praying that the power wasn't out for long. As soon as I flipped the switch back on, I heard shuffling outside my door. Heavy footsteps echoed, and the quiet whispering returned. "Let me in." My resolve wavered. This time it sounded almost pleading, desperate.
Without thinking, I bolted into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. The sound of footsteps grew louder, moving around my apartment. I pressed myself against the cold tiles and buried my head in my hands. I didn't know what to do. Then something hit me. Maybe there was a way I could see who it was without being seen. I grabbed my phone, using the flashlight to guide me. I slowly grabbed the small window above the bathtub, hoping to look out. That's when I saw it. A reflection in the glass. Someone was right behind me. I spun around, my heart racing. That whisper echoed again, even closer now. Let me in. I barely had time to process the fear coursing through me before I felt a chill run down my spine. The figure behind me was tall, cloaked in shadows, and the air felt heavier with dread. I could hardly breathe. My grip on the phone tightened, and I aimed the flashlight toward the intruder, feeling like this was my only weapon against the unknown. The flashlight beam landed on a face. It was thin, gaunt, and almost translucent.
My breath caught in my throat again as recognition settled in. It was someone I had seen around the complex, but I couldn't recall their name. The figure seemed to be staring right through me, the same whisper escaping their lips. Let me in. A wave of panic coursed through me. I didn't want to be in the bathroom anymore. I turned back toward the window, hoping to make my escape, when suddenly the figure's palm was pressed flat against the glass. The sight made my stomach turn. Their fingers looked elongated and unnatural. I stumbled backward, glancing frantically around the small bathroom for anything I could use to defend myself. A shower rod? A towel rack? They seemed so useless against that desperate face. Then I heard a loud bang from the front of the apartment. The door trembled on its hinges. I froze. My mind raced. Did they make it inside? I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Instead, I was struck by a sudden thought. What if this figure was different? What if they really needed help? A small part of me stirred with curiosity, battling my fear. But then another bang resounded, louder this time, and I realized whatever had been outside was now somehow inside, searching for me. My heart thrummed wildly, and I gripped my phone tighter. Please help me, the figure pleaded, voice trembling. I cursed my own humanity for feeling even a pinch of empathy. With every ounce of strength, I turned toward the bathroom door, hyper-aware of every sound. I could hear it moving, shifting closer, making its way toward me, and just as I thought I might have time to plan, something scratched at the door, sharp and relentless. The door rattled again. Let me in. But it was the other door now, the main one, while the other remained quiet. I took an instinctive step back, knowing it was my only way to escape. But in that moment of indecision, a loud crash erupted in the living room, something heavy hitting the floor. A surge of primal fear shot through me. Who or what was in my apartment? The figure loomed, frozen against the window, its eyes dark and glistening like a predator. I took another step back, preparing to sprint for the bathroom window to escape. But then, just before I could move, the soft voice transformed into a scream of agony. Help me! I pressed my palms against my ears, trying to block it out. Help me! In that moment, I made a decision. I didn't know where the window would lead, but I couldn't stay here. I had to get away. But as I rushed toward the tub, the lights flickered once more, a storm brewing inside my mind and home. Amid everything, something emerged from the shadows. I didn't have time to scream. I just needed to run. I dove for the window, my heart pounding. The figure slammed against the glass with desperate strength, its face mere inches from mine. The clang echoed in my ears. I could feel the pressure building, a muffled scream trying to escape my throat. I had one chance. Gripping the sides of the window, I shoved it open. The metal creaked under stress, but it gave way. I could see the ground below me, a long drop, but I didn't care. I just wanted out. I hoisted myself up, heart racing, and swung my legs over the edge. Just as I was about to drop down, I heard it again, a shattering crash from somewhere inside the apartment, like a door being wrenched off its hinges. Panic surged through me like ice water. I hesitated, then pushed myself over the sill, feeling gravity take hold. The impact knocked the breath out of me, but adrenaline spurred me forward. I hit the ground rolling, scrambling to my feet. The cool air felt liberating compared to the suffocating dread I'd left behind. I took off down the narrow side of the building, moving toward the alleyway that led to the street. My legs burned, but I didn't dare look back. Then I heard it again, a voice, not from the apartment, but from further down the alley. Help me! It was familiar, echoing the voice of the figure. My stomach twisted. Had they followed me? I rounded the corner and came to a halt in shock. The moonlight illuminated a shadowy figure, one that seemed to sway slightly, wrapped in darkness. I squinted, desperate to make out what it was. As I took a step closer, a wave of recognition washed over me.
It was the person from the complex, but now they were hunched over, hands on their knees, hair falling into their face. I froze, caught between fear and the need to understand what was happening. "Are you okay?" I managed to call out, the words fumbling from my tongue like lead. They looked up, and I recoiled. Their eyes were wide, unfocused, filled with unspeakable despair. "They're coming for you," the figure gasped, voice raspy and strained. "You have to run! You have to—" Before they could finish, a loud crash sounded down the street, a heavy thud that echoed even in the cool night air. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but guilt anchored me in place. What did they mean? Who was coming? "Come with me," I started, but instinct kicked in again. I turned to run just as I heard footsteps behind me, heavy and unrelenting. The alley's shadows grew long, and something was moving, darting toward us. I glanced back, caught a glimpse of a twisted figure emerging from the darkness. My blood ran cold. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just running from one threat, I was running from multiple dangers. I didn't have time to think anymore. I sprinted forward, adrenaline slicing through the confusion, focusing on the next alley, the next turn, praying I could outpace whatever hunted me. "Please," the figure gasped as I left them behind. I hadn't even given them my hand, and now I could hear the faint echo of their voice getting swallowed by the night. But I couldn't stop. Not now. Just as I thought I had gotten away, my foot struck something soft yet solid. I stumbled, my hands flailing.
That's when I saw it. A suitcase, half open, everything spilling out onto the pavement. A rush of unease washed over me, and as I pushed myself up, I couldn't shake off the feeling that this was no accident. The echo of footsteps was getting louder behind me again. This time, I knew I had to act fast. But then a thought struck me. What if the suitcase held answers? What if it was tied to everything that was happening? I hesitated, torn. I could run, or I could dig into the unknown once again. I dropped to my knees, heart racing as I scrambled to the suitcase. The shuffling behind me grew louder, but curiosity tugged at me. I couldn't ignore the strange sense of urgency gnawing at my gut. With shaky hands, I yanked the suitcase open. Inside was a mix of clothing and various items, some familiar, some foreign. A tattered notebook caught my eye, its pages crinkled and stained. I barely glanced at it before a feeling of dread washed over me. Someone had clearly been rushing to leave, but why the rush? Could their memory or secrets be trapped within this mess? Then a glimmer caught my attention. A small metallic object lay nestled deep in the clothing. I reached for it, pulling out what appeared to be a key. I turned it over in my hand, the cold surface slick and unfamiliar. My pulse quickened. A key meant a lock, and a lock meant something hidden. But hidden from what? What had this person done? My thoughts raced as footsteps pounded closer. I could practically feel the heat of whatever darkness chased me. I had to move, and fast. With one last glance at the suitcase, I tucked the key into my pocket. I stood, adrenaline kicking in, and took off down the alley, the key jabbing against my thigh with every hurried step. I thought I heard the cry from the figure earlier, faint but insistent, mixed with the clamor approaching from behind. "Help me," echoed again and again in my mind. Was I abandoning them, or was it foolish to even consider turning back? Then the alley opened up into a wider street. I darted into the open, scanning for any sign of safety, any place to hide. My eyes landed on a dimly lit diner at the corner. I had to get inside, at least until I could think. I sprinted toward it, lungs burning, the sound of my footsteps drowned out by the relentless noise behind me. I burst through the diner doors, nearly crashing into a table. The friendly clatter of dinnerware and chatter filled the air, distracting me only slightly from the rising panic. I looked around for a booth, somewhere to sit and collect my thoughts. I could feel eyes on me, curiosity mixed with concern, but I didn't have time to engage. As I slid into a booth at the back, I noticed the other patrons didn't seem to care much about my sudden entrance. They were absorbed in their own conversations, like the world outside didn't matter. It was both a relief and a growing unease creeping up my spine. I pulled out the key, looking at it again, wondering what door it might unlock.
A sense of foreboding washed over me. This could very well be my ticket to understanding what was really happening. My heart raced, thoughts spiraling as the memories of the figure and their warning loomed over me like a dark cloud. Suddenly, the diner door swung open. My breath caught in my throat as I turned to see who it was. The smile of the waitress froze on her face, her gaze shifting past me. My heart dropped. I wasn't alone in my flight. Heavy footsteps approached, and I knew whatever I had run from was right outside. The key now felt like a weight, a promise of answers I couldn't yet handle. I ducked lower in the booth, hoping to remain unseen as the shadow loomed closer. I needed to figure out my next move, and fast. Time was running out. I held my breath, trying to steady my racing heart. The footsteps had stopped, and I could feel the tension in the air as if everyone in the diner had collectively decided to hold their breath with me. I glanced around the booth, searching for some way to vanish completely. My body felt stuck, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm that echoed in my ears. Then the door creaked open wider, and I barely dared to look. The figure who stepped in was large, shrouded in a dark coat, their face obscured by a baseball cap that cast a shadow over their features. I shifted my eyes down to the key, which still sat in my hand like an omen. Was this person the reason I had run? The shape moved through the diner, scanning the space, and my skin prickled with the realization that they were searching for me. I could almost feel their gaze dancing over the crowd, landing briefly on the waitress who still stood frozen. My heart raced. Desperation clawed at my insides. I had to do something. I ducked further down, hoping the booth would shield me. I focused on the tablecloth, its diner-themed print blurring as I wrestled with panic. The hot food being served smelled enticing, but fear churned my stomach. Moments passed like an eternity. I thought the figure was about to leave when I heard a voice. The waitress, still visibly shaken, whispered, "Can I help you?" Her tone was measured, but I could hear the tremor. He spoke, his voice low and gravelly. "I'm looking for someone. A woman. She came in here not long ago." I pressed my back against the booth, heart thudding. Was he talking about me? The thought sent chills down my spine. I felt exposed, as if a light had been turned on in a dark room, leaving me illuminated. I needed a plan, something to buy me time. Then, in a moment of sheer instinct, I leaned down and slid the key out of sight. I felt a burst of resolve. Whatever this was, I couldn't let it define me. I could find out what had happened, and this key was my starting point. Suddenly, the figure's voice got closer, and I knew I had to act. I waited until the waitress pointed in the opposite direction, where a door led to the back. Without thinking, I nodded in her direction, as if I were a part of her lie.
"I saw her go that way," I breathed, hoping the shadow would take my bait. The figure hesitated for just a moment, considering my words, and then started toward the door. My stomach twisted, knowing I'd just painted a target on my back. But as soon as he stepped into the back, I turned to the waitress. "You need to call the police, now!" My voice came out in a rush, desperation spilling over. "I can't stay here!" Before she could respond, I slipped out of the booth, heart racing. I had to find a way out before he realized I hadn't gone anywhere at all. I moved toward the exit as quietly as I could, but then I heard a noise from the back, something crashing. Everything froze, and in that breath of silence, I knew I was trapped. The figure was coming back. This wasn't over. As the door creaked open again, I could see it was now or never. I darted for the diner's exit, hoping I wouldn't look back and fall into the darkness that loomed behind me. The cool evening air hit me as I burst through the diner door, a wave of relief followed by a surge of adrenaline. I didn't stop running. I could still hear the muffled chaos behind me as I dashed down the street, my shoes slapping against the pavement. Fear propelled me forward, but I had no idea where I was going. The streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced along the sidewalk. I didn't dare look back to see if he was following me. My eyes scanned the streets, searching for a safe place, a hiding spot. My mind whirled with questions. Who was that man? What did he want from me? And how did he know I'd been at the diner? My thoughts were a jumbled mess, but one thing was clear. I had to find a place to hide. I spotted a small alleyway to my right and ran toward it, my heart pounding in sync with my footsteps. The alley was narrow and dark, the brick walls closing in on me as I pressed myself against the cold surface. I held my breath to listen for any sounds of pursuit. The clatter of my heart echoed in the stillness, and I strained to hear anything beyond it. After a few moments, I felt the heat of my panic dissipating, but caution held me in place. I had to stay alert. As the adrenaline began to fade, I reached into my pocket and felt the key's cool metal against my fingers. I remembered the flash of confusion on the figure's face when the waitress pointed me away. I needed answers. That's when I saw it, a flicker of light from the end of the alley. My curiosity pulled me out of my hiding spot despite the risk. I crept toward the source, moving cautiously until I reached a small doorway. The light shone through a cracked window, illuminating a dusty sign that read, "The Old Bookstore." It appears closed, but something urged me to check it out. I hesitated, weighing my options. Should I stay in the alley or take a chance on this place? The thought of the shadowy figure returning pushed me to turn the old doorknob. It creaked ominously as I opened it and slipped inside. My senses heightened as I took in the dusty air and rows of shelves piled with books. I could smell the pages, old and faded, a comforting scent that contrasted sharply with my recent fright. As I ventured deeper, I heard a sound, a soft thud, followed by a shuffling. I froze, heart racing once more. I wasn't alone.
"Hello?" I called out, my voice barely a whisper, the echo bouncing off the walls. Silence hung thick in the air. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but curiosity held me in place. I took a cautious step forward, letting my eyes adjust to the dim light. That's when I noticed it. A book protruding from the shelf, slightly askew, as if someone had pulled it out and forgotten to push it back in. My hand moved instinctively to pull it free. As I grasped the cover, a chill swept through the room. The air felt heavier, charged, as if the world around me was waiting for something to happen. This wasn't just a bookstore. Something was off, and the weight of the key in my pocket seemed to press harder against me. What was I about to uncover? As I pulled the book from the shelf, a cloud of dust puffed into the air, obscuring my vision for a moment. I coughed, feeling the weight of everything around me shift. When I regained focus, I stared down at the cover. It was old, the title worn and faded, but I could make out the words, "The Secrets We Keep." Before I could really process what I was holding, a light flickered above me, and the faint sound of footsteps broke the stillness. My pulse quickened. If someone was here, it meant I wasn't safe. I pressed myself against the shelf, trying to blend into the shadows as the footsteps grew louder, echoing through the narrow aisles. "Who's there?" A voice called out, low and gravelly, sending shivers down my spine. I remained silent, holding my breath as the footsteps paused, inching closer. I could almost feel the heat of the person's presence looming just a few feet away. Just then, the light flickered once more, casting erratic shadows that danced on the wall. In that moment, I remembered the key in my pocket. Whatever this book was, it felt significant, and the key seemed to hum against my leg, urging me to take action. But where would I even use it? The footsteps resumed, and I carefully glanced around the shelf, peering through the small gap. A tall figure moved past me, clad in a dark coat that absorbed the dim light. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't recognize them, but the urgency in their movements told me they were not here to browse. As they approached the front, I took my chance. Clutching the book tightly, I shifted quickly down the aisle and toward another set of shelves, trying to stay silent. I found a small nook and pressed into the shadows, hoping to evade detection. Then a sudden crash rang out. I flinched, adrenaline racing through me as I instinctively ducked down. The figure had knocked over a stack of boxes, sending the contents spilling across the floor. My mind raced. Had they spotted me? I held my breath, waiting for the tension to break. The figure cursed under their breath and began to pick up the items. I risked another glance, wondering if they were indeed searching for me. That's when I noticed something. A glimmer of silver beneath the fallen boxes caught my eye. Slowly, I reached for it, pulling back a corner to reveal a small metallic device. It looked like a key, but it had a strange insignia etched into its surface. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted again. The figure glanced back toward my hiding place, eyes narrowing. "I know you're here," they said, their voice lowering to a menacing tone. "Show yourself." Panic surged through me. I couldn't just sit here and wait for them to find me. With a swift motion, I shoved the key into my pocket and bolted out from my hiding spot, clutching the book close to my chest. I had to make it to the door. As I sprinted forward, I could almost feel the heat of their presence behind me. "Stop!" they shouted, but I didn't look back. I burst through the doorway, pushing outside into the cool night, the weight of the key suddenly feeling both a blessing and a curse. I had no plan, no destination, but I knew one thing for certain. I had to uncover the secrets hidden within that book. Whatever danger lay ahead, I was in it now, and there was no turning back. The streetlights flickered dimly as I stepped into the night. My heart raced as I sprinted down the deserted road, the chill in the air biting at my skin. I couldn't shake the feeling that the figure from the library was right behind me, shadowing my every move. The isolation of the night felt stifling, the silence broken only by my hurried breaths and the distant rustle of leaves. Clutching the book tightly, I darted into an alley, searching for a place to catch my breath and think. I pressed my back against the cold brick wall, trying to remain still, but my mind was racing. The key in my pocket seemed to pulse with urgency every time I thought of it. What was it for? What kind of secrets did the book hold? As I leaned against the wall, I heard footsteps approaching from the main road. My heart dropped into my stomach. I risked a quick glance around the corner. It was a group of people walking toward me, laughing and chatting without a care in the world. Relieved, I sunk deeper into the shadows. They wouldn't know the danger I felt lurking just outside the alley. Once they passed, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I had to find a safe place, somewhere I could dig into the book without looking over my shoulder. I remembered the old cafe around the corner. It was usually open late, and the barista was friendly enough not to question my presence during odd hours. I took one last look behind me before maneuvering out of the alley and heading toward the cafe.
My breath came in shallow bursts as I almost stumbled forward. The quiet street was disarming, but I pushed my unease aside.
I needed to focus. The cafe's neon sign flickered to life in the distance, an inviting halo against the oppressive night. As I reached the door, I found it surprisingly unlocked. I stepped inside, greeted by the warm smell of coffee and pastries. The barista was alone, engrossed in a book behind the counter. "Hey there," I said quietly, trying to sound casual. She looked up, a surprised expression crossing her face. "You okay?" "Yeah, just needed a place to think." I tried to smile, but I could tell it fell flat. She offered me a nod, returning to her book. I slumped into a corner table, placing the book down with a heavy thud. I needed to look inside it, to unravel whatever mystery surrounded it. As I opened it, the first few pages revealed nothing but faded words and delicate illustrations. I flipped through, but then something caught my attention. A slip of paper tucked between the pages. My heart raced as I pulled it out. That's when I saw it, a detailed sketch of the cafe itself, but with one major difference. The illustration displayed an odd symbol carved into the floor beneath a table, one that matched the insignia on the peculiar key. Confusion and fear crashed over me. I glanced up toward the barista, who still hadn't noticed my discovery. What was this map leading to? The urge to get answers surged within me, but I hesitated. Then the cafe door swung open with a creak, and a figure stepped inside, clad in the same dark coat as the one I encountered before. My stomach twisted into knots. I was about to find out what secrets were meant to be uncovered, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. I squeezed the edge of the table, my heart pounding as the figure stepped through the cafe door. They scanned the room, their gaze sweeping over tables and patrons before landing ominously in my direction. Time seemed to stand still. I could feel the heat radiating from my cheeks as panic washed over me, drowning out the warm ambiance of the cafe. "Find her," they muttered, voice low but filled with determination. My blood ran cold. Did they know I was here? In a split-second decision, I shoved the sketch and the book into my bag, deciding not to risk drawing attention any further. I feigned interest in my phone, hoping to blend in, to appear unbothered, a random customer with no connection to the chaos enveloping me. The barista looked up from her book, her brow furrowing at the tension thickening the air. She seemed to clock the figure, her uncertainty mirroring my own, but she just shook her head, returning to her reading. I wished I could convey my level of distress to her, to let her know all wasn't well, but all I could do was keep my breathing shallow and my eyes trained on the intruder. The cloaked figure made their way slowly, deliberately toward the counter. Their intentions were shrouded in mystery, and I couldn't help but think the shadows had given birth to something monstrous. I didn't know how much longer I could stay hidden. Just then, the door swung open again, jangling the tiny bells adorning it. This time, a group of college students came in, laughing and chattering. They stood obliviously between me and the advancing figure. I held my breath, wishing more than anything for the crowd to zone in on their distress. "Did you see the game last night?" one of them said, raising their voice to reach beyond the barista's counter. I used the moment to edge slowly toward the back of the cafe, desperate to find an exit. But it seemed more difficult than I suspected. The world around me had shifted into slow motion, and each step felt like wading through molasses. Suddenly, the shadow turned abruptly, squinting in my direction yet again. I flinched, feeling like a deer caught in headlights. My instincts screamed at me, "Run!" I bolted towards the dim restroom in the corner, crowding behind the half-closed door just as the figure reached the barista. I pressed against the cool tile wall, heart thundering in my chest. I knew I had to go, but the thought of facing that figure again sent paralyzing dread coursing through me. "Have you seen a woman?" The figure's voice echoed off the walls of the cafe, laced with urgency. "She left just a moment ago." There was no response, and for a fleeting moment it seemed like the shadows would claim me as theirs, trapping me forever in this fear-laden game. The barista remained silent, a deep tension settling over the cafe that seemed to strain against the backdrop of casual chatter as students joked with one another. I pressed my finger to my lips, dampening my breath, praying that my presence remained oblivious to both the figure and the crowd. Time passed slowly, as sound and silence swirled together, until at last the figure turned back toward the door. My shoulders sagged in relief, but the moment was short-lived. Their eyes lingered a moment too long on the restroom before they stepped out into the night. I waited, counting each second, unsure if I dared leave my refuge. Cautiously, I peeked through the door crack. The cafe appeared normal again, the students laughing, oblivious. That's when I heard it, a voice dripping with despair, echoing in the stillness of the night. "You can't escape." It was faint but unmistakable, sending icy dread spiraling through me.
Swallowing hard, I slipped out of the restroom, still clutching the book and the knowledge that the key held some significance. Outside, the air was sharp and biting, stirring a rising sense of fear within me. The name of the game was survival now, and time was running short. I stepped onto the sidewalk, looking left and right. The figure was nowhere to be seen. I had to decide quickly where to go next. In desperation, I recalled the symbol sketched in the book and pulled it out, scanning my surroundings for any clue. The dark streets were silent, the world feeling heavy with unsaid truths.
As I flipped through the pages, the shopkeeper's caution rang in my ears, reminding me to uncover the secrets instead of fleeing blindly. "Where do you go from here?" I muttered under my breath, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination swell into resolve. Just then, I caught sight of a glimmer down the street, a small, eerily glowing light emanating from a nearby park. My heart raced. What if there were answers waiting? Without overthinking my decision, I took off, chasing the ambiguous promise of revelation that awaited me. I found myself standing at the park entrance, the light illuminating the path ahead. It flickered like a beacon, an invitation or a warning, I couldn't tell. I hesitated for a moment, fear clawing at me, but another shiver coursed through me. I couldn't turn back. Not now. As I stepped forward, the night deepened around me, a thick veil of uncertainty. I felt a pull, a magnetic force drawing me closer to the heart of the mystery. Whatever lay ahead might be what I needed to confront whoever, the unknown beings that cloaked themselves in darkness. I just hoped it wouldn't consume me whole. With an ironic twinge of hope, I pressed further into the darkness, the promise of truth but an arm's length ahead. As I moved deeper, I couldn't help but wonder, was this the end of my escape, or merely the beginning of the unraveling? Only time would tell.